Hello everyone, CrystalFissure here. Today I want to talk about Yuzu, Citra, the current emulation scene, and really everything that's happened over the past, I guess it was a few weeks now, but really everything sort of came to a head a day or so ago with the shutdown of Yuzu, Nintendo Switch emulator, and Citra, a 3DS emulator that had, it wasn't really being worked on to the same frequency that it used to be, but rather the whole thing, really everything that's going on has broader implications for the emulation scene, what's legal, what's not, and really I want to talk about this because this is quite a big deal. Basically what's happened is Yuzu, with the Switch emulator, the team have to pay, I believe, damages of like $2.4 million to Nintendo. They have to stop, cease work on all their projects, all of their, the Switch project being Yuzu, and they also have to, I believe that it's rumored that they're not allowed to work on, other emulators and stuff like that. So obviously this is huge, and the reason why I think it is so huge is because it gets into that murky area of legality and piracy and everything like that that people feel really, really strongly about. So I want to kind of put my perspective out there, and I want to hear from you guys too, because I think that it's really important that we have this discussion, especially on this channel. I feel like, on this channel, on CrystalFissure, we are, I don't want to come across as being like pro-piracy, and that, I'm like, yeah, everyone should just be able to have everything for free, and no one should ever get, rewarded for their work. I don't want to take that perspective. But I do believe that when it comes to Nintendo specifically, and I would say Sony and Microsoft to a lesser extent, but still to an extent, we have a situation here where I think, emulators like this being, cease and desisted, being stopped, punishing developers and stuff like that, of these emulators is overall bad for the scene, but also for game preservation. Now, let me firstly acknowledge, and this maybe is unfair because you're going to get fringe fans, of every kind of, of every company. But the one thing that's really stuck out to me is this. I'm just going to say it: this indoctrination of certain Nintendo fans that absolutely not only celebrate the fact that this emulator has been taken down and that justice has been served, so to speak, to Yuzu, and it's inevitably probably going to happen to Ryujinx, which is another Switch emulator, but also, yeah, they're reveling in the fact that they've been, caught out and have been punished, but also seemingly just the absolute lack of care that these games, some of these games that are being able to be played on emulators, particularly on Citra, will never actually be able to come out, will never be officially released again. You have to pay hundreds of dollars to get the physical copy of them. The servers don't exist anymore, they're not live anymore, and that apparently is a good thing because Nintendo, they're a physical product, they're a physical company, they make games that are out in physical release. Apparently this is meant to be a good thing, that we've stopped emulation. And to those bootlickers, I say that you have absolutely no stake in their Nintendo's success. You're not a stakeholder, or maybe if they're on the the stock exchange or whatever. Okay, you got a couple $100 invested in them. Okay, cool. You can be a fan of the company, but to bootlick to this degree and celebrate this, to me, is kind of, I would say it's almost deranged, because you as a person are not negatively impacted by this in any way. You are not negatively impacted by the fact that someone can play Luigi's Mansion 2 on Citra, or can play Mario Kart 8 in 4K, which you can't even do on the damn console, even if you own a copy of the game. So that's something that really upsets me, because if you look at, say you want to play Pokemon Black, Pokemon White, I'll put up some pictures here, right? Look at how expensive it is to buy some of these copies. Some of these copies aren't even new, they're used. Right? You go to Japan and you can see this, firsthand. And there are plenty of games that are very, very cheap, but then there are other games that are just ridiculously expensive because they're finite, right? They're a physical copy. Emulation allows it and basically allows you to be able to have a copy of this game as a file. And yes, you can share it with your friends. Yes, you can download this illegally. But my argument to that is inevitably going to happen in every single way, like in every case, and not just in gaming, in podcasts or anything behind a paywall. sadly, it's inevitable. And while it would be great to have a, dare I say, a store or an online portal where you could actually purchase these games at a reasonable price, as of right now, you can't. For example, if you want to play the N64, you want to play Nintendo 64 on your Switch, it's absolutely great that they have Nintendo Switch Online, and it's absolutely great that they have these emulated copies of these games, and you can play them. The problem is that they barely have any in comparison to the size of the library. Now you could say, oh, well, they're allowing it to be, for a cheap subscription, you can play all these games effectively very, very cheap. Yes, you can. But what is actually stopping them from being able to release all of the games and be able to, or even be able to individually buy some of these games? I remember when I was a kid and I had the Nintendo Wii, I bought Mario 64, I bought Donkey Kong Country. I remember, you'd buy them individually, right? You remember the Wii Shop channel thing by Nirvana the band, the show, and it was going through the Wii Shop and everything like that. They don't even have that available anymore to the same extent that they used to, right? Where you can't pick up so many iconic games. So emulation allows you to play these games. Now the counter argument, of course, is just own the console. Okay, that is great. And in the case of in the case of like a cartridge, I don't know if cartridges have the same shelf life as a disc. I know that disc rot is a thing, and that's one of those things where actually backing up these discs to files from an objective standpoint is actually quite important to game preservation. So some people may make the argument that what we're saying here is a little bit, it's sort of pretending to be for the argument of of game preservation under the guise of just wanting to be able to play games for free. And for some people, I absolutely understand that. Think about some of the examples, maybe Jak and Daxter, Jak 2 with OpenGold, the OpenGold technology, right? Requires you to have your disk or rip your ISO to do that. Now, the onus really isn't on OpenGold for you to have an official ISO that you've ripped yourself. You can go online and get it, absolutely. That is absolutely the case. However, it's not their responsibility. And from a legal standpoint, if you look at the history of emulation, I believe it was called Bleem, which was a PlayStation emulator. I believe Bleem was a PlayStation emulator. This went to court over 20 years ago now, and I believe Bleem ruled in favor of Bleem. So if the Yuzu versus Nintendo suit actually went to trial, I think there's absolutely a chance that Yuzu would have won if they were able to present their arguments in a way that it can be explained to an everyman. And that's inherently the big problem with juries. I think this is getting into the weeds now. This is really ranty, but this is the thing with juries, right? We have to baby them, coddle them, because you have to find people of a certain type that aren't gonna, that are gonna behave in a certain way. It's like, well, okay, if you can't explain, if they don't understand the intricacies of emulation, all this, well then maybe they won't win. Well, that should almost be a problem in and of itself. But my point aside from that, I think that what actually happened, they said that I think Nintendo said they lost an astronomical amount of sales because of this, and then they ended up selling for 2.4 million. So that doesn't seem like an astronomical amount of sales. To me, that feels more like a bullying tactic. Now, the other thing to acknowledge is that Yuzu had a Patreon page. Yuzu made money from this emulator. And that's where the legalities that's where it gets tricky. Because, for example, let's say PCSX2. PCSX2 does not take money. Dolphin, I believe, does not take money. Ryujinx does. So interesting, the two Switch emulators do take money. And I know that there was some stuff with Yuzu where they would have tiers in their Patreon to basically be able to there'd be tiers in their Patreon to be able to have play builds earlier with games that just come out. Now that is the closest argument you could make to it being a little bit not unethical. Maybe unethical isn't the right word, but flying a little bit too close to the sun, Icarus, if you will. A little bit of Icarus core right there, because that was basically acknowledging the fact that some of these games had leaked early. Maybe there are torrents of the games or links to the games, and so that was, I wouldn't say encouraging piracy, but kind of looking past piracy. You'll see in their message itself that they talk about. They're like, Yuzu and his team have always been against piracy. We started the project in good faith, out of passion for Nintendo and its consoles, but we're not intending to cause harm. But we see now that our projects circumvent Nintendo's technological protection measures, blah, 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 etc., blah, 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 led to extensive piracy. This is to me, this is a gun to the head kind of message. I mean, I'm sure to some degree they probably recognize their involvement in piracy, but I mean, actually I shouldn't even say piracy. Of course there is piracy. involved. But yeah, definitely doesn't. It isn't good. The problem is that what their slippery slope is, and why Nintendo might feel emboldened to do this, is that obviously the fear is that now they'll go after other emulators, and no one can be bothered fighting them. Now, Ryujinx, I believe, I feel like it's based in Brazil. I could be wrong about that. I remember reading that. And other emulators that are not in America might be able to circumvent this for a while. But obviously the fear of this is that, an emulator like PCSX2 or Dolphin might be targeted. I mean, from an objective standpoint, if you look at the history of Dolphin, how long it's been around, there's probably been more piracy on Dolphin than probably almost any other emulator other than maybe EPSXE or PlayStation 1, which I feel like everyone uses, at least in my orbit. So maybe they go after Dolphin next because, there is online on Dolphin. You can play Wii and Nintendo GameCube. The problem is, of course, once again, is that Nintendo do not offer a way to play these games now. The other funny thing is that their own emulation efforts, and I mean this like industry-wide, are crap compared to these fans. And so what I don't understand is that there could be a scenario where, and maybe there's other legal hurdles here, where, if you ask me, some of these companies should be actually approaching, these fans, these developers, to build emulators for them, because then everyone can make money, right? You pay the developers for working on it, and they get to actually have proprietary knowledge of like Nintendo's APIs or Sony's or Xbox's. They get to do that. They get to then put it on their store or something like that, sell these games, and then kind of everyone wins, right? And even if you had emulation on on PC, remember Dolphin was trying to get on Steam store a few years back, although not even a year ago now, and that was obviously massively controversial. You could totally do something there where you have these stores, because the other thing is that so if you look, for example, at the PlayStation Plus or whatever it is, right? You try and play Ape Escape 2 on that emulator, on the emulator on the PS5. No joke, no exaggeration. Playing it is slow. It was broken for a long time before it got fixed, and it was broadcasting emulation errors that had been fixed on PCSX2 years ago, right? Mip-map being issues and stuff like that. And so to me, it almost seems like a no-brainer that Sony would contact PCSX2 and get them to just port what they have over there onto the actual console. Now, maybe that's easier said than done. I'm not speaking from pure technical knowledge here, but it is just something that when I look at this and I'm rambling and everything like that, it is just frustrating, because I understand why maybe there are some fans that are like, well, piracy is illegal and it's costing these companies money. But the counter argument to that is both, one, you're probably not a shareholder, you're probably not a stockholder. It shouldn't involve you. This is not a win for the scene in any way. And two, allowing less options for people to be able to play these games, whether legal or not, is not a great thing. It just isn't a great thing. Imagine if we weren't able to emulate, like for example, I own all the Spyro games, right? But if I want to play it on the computer at a higher resolution than before, I want to add widescreen patches and stuff like that, I want to record, should we just take that away for everyone? Should no one be able to do that anymore? When, by the way, no one is making money from those Spyro games anymore. Everything that is on the resale market, for example, is not going to Nintendo. And I remember years ago they were trying to monetize reselling. I remember the companies were one of the companies, I can't remember who it was, but they were trying to resell, it was like something with GameStop or something like that. You can't do that, right? Once the game has been sold, the game has been sold, that's it. So yeah, this is very, very frustrating. I want to hear from you guys though. Now probably the people that are going to leave an angry comment or something like that have probably already clicked off and have already left their comment. But if we disagree, if everyone disagrees, let's agree to disagree. Let's have a civil discussion. I really enjoyed the comments on the Spyro video, Toys for Bob, sorry, should I say, because it was great. We had some people that had some different perspectives and it was sort of all in harmony. I know this is going to be a controversial topic. Let's be nice to each other. Okay, let's be friendly, because yes, this is a passion issue. I think now know my stance. I am open to have my mind changed, I guess is maybe the right word, but I am sort of set in what I believe. I'm absolutely down to hear other people's perspectives on it. But I think that if you are going to come into this from the perspective of, oh, what an L for the developers, they got what they deserved, I'm not really interested in talking about that, because I think that is sort of mean-spirited, and to be honest, that's sort of that's anti this kind of culture that this channel has basically been born out of emulation, right? Without emulation, this channel basically doesn't exist, to be honest, if you think about it, with like the PS1 games, the PS2 games. Like, I'm not recording with the Dazzle on a low, you know, 480p thing. No, absolutely not, right? Like that's reality. But I'm here. I'm gonna end the video because we've been talking long enough. I really enjoy doing these kind of videos. I want to do some more. Hope you like this shirt I got given as a gift. It's really, it's bloody, it's actually a 2XL. It's actually too big, but I like it. It's very nice. And we've got this. This was from this was cheap actually. It looks like it's like one of those, like, what was it from, like a, what are they called, like the depots or whatever, direct factory outlet in Melbourne. So it's like usually like $100, it's down to like $40. So yeah, I feel like I'm wearing like hype beast kind of clothing here. But yeah, this was a gift and this was, yeah, relatively cheap. But anyway, thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye, mwah, good night, bye 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 bye.